You're watching Hockey North. We are a third through the Professional Women's Hockey League's second season. Karissa, there's so much to talk about. Favorite moments from the past week. Let's just start there.
Yeah, I think we got to talk about the Quebec City Takeover Tour, Anastasia. I mean, so cool to see more than 18,000 fans there and just a couple really nice moments. I mean, we saw Marie-Philippe Poulin's grandmother. Radio Canada had her mic'd up and we saw her dancing. We saw her doing the wave, getting emotional when her granddaughter got that amazing ovation from the crowd. So that was awesome to see. But I think the moment that might take the cake for me is Kat Dubois getting the big goal at home. Like, that's a player that's been through it. This time last year, she didn't have a contract, she didn't get drafted. And, she's really had to earn that spot on Montreal's roster. And I think she was saying after the game that she had tears in her eyes just going out, being on that starting lineup, which was a really cool thing that Corey Chevry did, I think, to have the local players in the starting lineup. And then to score a goal at home, like, you can't beat it.
Yeah, the Takeover Tour always feels like it's more than just a game. Like it's a moment, and it was so cool to see so many folks and family and friends show up for all the players. Huge moment for Quebec. Everyone rocking in with Nordiques and Rampart jerseys on. Come on. So cool. I do want to talk about Laura Stacey, though. Big injury, unfortunately. Anything that you're hearing, Montreal is still firing on all cylinders, though.
Yeah, I mean, they had a great weekend. You really can't ask for anything better than that, with one of your best players out. So right now, Anastasia, we know she's not on long-term injury reserve, so that's a good sign. But one thing to keep in mind is also that Montreal has a 10-day break, so they're not playing again until January 29th. So I think the plan there is kind of to take it day by day and see how she's doing then. So we don't really know at this point the extent of her injury. The team's been pretty tight-lipped about that. But hopefully we'll know a little bit more once the team gets closer to returning, and that break kind of comes at the perfect time for her, I would say.
Yeah, the break certainly going to help, hopefully, Laura Stacey's injury and status. Let's talk about expansion, though, quickly, because over 18,000 fans obviously show up in Quebec City. What does that tell you? Are you hearing anything different? Because I feel like this is still a conversation that's on the tip of everyone's tongue.
Yeah, everyone wants to talk expansion, right? Like, it's fun. It's fun to talk about where you could have teams and kind of play, league president. Here's where I would put a team and whatnot. So obviously Quebec City showed really well, but I think all the cities that the tour has visited so far have performed pretty well. Like, Vancouver was amazing. Denver was chanting, "We want a team," and then of course Seattle as well. So it's not just how did one game turn out, like that they're looking at more than that. When I was speaking with Jana Hefford earlier this month, she was talking about there's so many other things on their criteria list that they're considering. So they're looking at geography, they're looking at media, they're looking at youth hockey, and economic opportunity as well. And it's also worth noting it's not a done deal that they're going to expand for season 3, but they could expand as soon as season 3 and by as many as 2 teams. So that's sort of where it's at. But in terms of where they're going to go, I mean, that's what everybody's wondering. And I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, let's talk Boston. This was a team that was very, very busy and then found themselves with about 10, 11 days off before playing. What would you do if you were Coach Courtney Kessel? What would the first thing you would tackle with the Fleet?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because the Fleet, they're scoring a lot on the power play. They've actually got the most efficient power play in the league, but they're not scoring at 5-on-5. Like, once again, this team is at the bottom for goals scored, which doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Like, I can't explain why that is. I don't know if Courtney Kessel can explain why that is, but I think just having your forward lines clicking and maybe shifting some things around and building different chemistry and maybe putting somebody like Alina Mueller in a different position to succeed. Like, maybe she should be playing more with somebody like Hannah Bilka. Like, just a thought. Those are some things that I think maybe I would be using that break to work on. But we also know that they made a huge trade yesterday, so
Yeah.
that's gonna shake things up too.
Taylor Gerard, Jill Saunier, 1-for-1. Of course, Saunier from the Sirens to the Fleet. What impact is she going to have?
Yeah, so talking to Danielle Marmer about this yesterday, the team's GM. I mean, we're looking at a player in Jill Saunier, who obviously she's done a ton in her career. She's an Olympic gold medalist. She's been to 2 Olympic Games. She's a world champion. She's won titles in the Canadian Women's Hockey League as well. So she's kind of been through it all at this point in her career. And we saw her kind of, a little bit lower down on the depth chart in New York, kind of in that fourth line role, maybe a healthy scratch sometimes. And she's also dealt with a lot of injuries over the last 2 seasons. But what Danielle said is that, she's going to see someone like her come in and maybe play sort of a similar role as she played in New York, but where they're really going to feel her impact, Anastasia, is in the locker room. And she plays with a lot of heart. She's somebody who, always brings the energy, always goes hard. And that's the role we saw her play on that gold medal winning team in 2022. So Danielle said she's going to come in and maybe add a bit of perspective for some of the younger players, some of the more skilled players on this Boston team, to be sharing a locker room with someone who does not take it for granted to be here.
Yeah, I mean, I know Jill Saunier very well. I can just speak to her positivity. She's the type of person that can have fun at a gas station. So that, like, I can't give anyone a bigger compliment. Like, she just makes people feel seen and very special. So the energy that will be injected, I'm excited to see what her impact will be. Can we take a look at the standings? We're a third through. Can you believe this?
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know where the time went, honestly. But it's interesting to see like that, those 3 points, Anastasia, for a regulation win. You're starting to see those, make such a huge difference. I mean, we've seen Montreal rattle off some of those and then climb up the standings. And what will be really interesting to see is how Montreal can hold that with Minnesota kind of on their heels. But Minnesota's skidding a little bit. And then we're seeing Ottawa make a bit of a push, like a hard kind of grinded out win last night, and their captain getting the game-winning goal. And you can't count the Sirens out either. So I think it's going to be really interesting over this next stretch to see how the teams do. And if you look at a team like Toronto too, like, I know that the points and standings don't show it, but talking to head coach Troy Ryan this week, he's really liked their play over the last 4 games. Like, he's seen that as a turning point, even if the results haven't been there. So can they put it together to kind of make up that ground? That's the question, Anastasia.
Okay, let's pivot to the national team. The rivalry series roster just released. Any surprises there?
Well, first of all, important to say that they're coming to the East Coast. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to be in Halifax. Can't wait.
Halifax
Yeah.
and PEI. Come on, Maritimes are going to throw a good party.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Going to be a homecoming for Troy Ryan, for Corey Chevry, Blair Turnbull as well. So that's going to be fun. Yeah, I think, a couple of additions from the last rivalry series. So someone that we're seeing come in again is Corrine Schroeder. So it's not her first rivalry series roster, Anastasia, but she's never started a game in a Canadian jersey. So it'll be interesting to see if she does get one of those 2 starts and they give her, a bit of an opportunity to show what she can do. Obviously, she's been great in the PWHL. And I think that 3rd spot on Team Canada's goaltending depth chart in 2026 is still up for grabs. So it's really interesting to see her be the goalie that they're turning to for this leg of the rivalry series. And then we are also seeing the return of Sophie Jakes. So again, she has played at the rivalry series before and, has had a really great career with Minnesota so far, really turned it around, I think, after her trade from Boston. And we've talked about this before. I think just the competition on the back end for Team Canada in 2026 is going to be the most interesting and I think the most fierce. And so now she's getting into the conversation. And you've got folks like Chloe Primerano, you've got Jocelyn Larocque, you've got Jamie Bourbonnais. So it's going to be really interesting to see what direction Team Canada goes in. And this is going to be an Olympic audition for a lot of players.
I was going to say, we of course have our eyes on it because it is such an opportunity to make that Olympic team in about a year's time. The rivalry series that's getting set in the beginning of February, actually, super soon. Halifax and PEI, Maritime's going to throw a good party. The next game on CBC, the Battle of Bay Street. The Toronto Scepters are hosting the New York Sirens. It'll be at the Scotiabank Arena, January 25th. We'll be there. Thanks for watching Hockey North.